allow me to tag
Nevertheless, or they will just easily be moved out because the industry has decided that no more of such kind of behaviors will be tolerated. The GCU did say that what he was saying is not up for debate. We've always needed that kind of political will and leadership in our industry.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Why not just put it on the floor and raise it up?
It's not going that far. I don't know why. Try and see whether it will extend more than that.
They also going by where you are before it used to go longer than this.
It's not this one.
It's not this one, but
Cool and still now.
It's not like he came to us NBC and they are going to say that it's like they have had the conversations with judgmental partners, they have had the meetings and cameras, and then came and made an official statement yesterday, which again, give credence to the fact that political because it provides a platform.
okay, this one is okay, Gimba, I noticed.
In a case where the press release is made, somebody goes and turns it around. Somebody wants to change what was said yesterday anyway. Somebody in the room really will like, nah, it wasn't said like this.
It's a Gimba, that is right.
So that really makes sense for us to continue to have engagements and like NOG Energy. So we went from that and sort of picture and listen at the time of course. We also listen to IPPG. IPPG saying the things that needs to be have to be done needs to be done quickly. I don't need to communicate. Yes, yesterday was quite stimulating, quite engaging. Other parts of yesterday, I'm sure we'll have again today. We'll get to there's a round table going on simultaneously.
So you guys want
this time, just for 1 hour, once they're done, we'll come back here and join us very on.
So this one.
You moved on to the technical meetings, yeah? Talk to us about technical meetings.
I don't think I would have been anywhere else but at technical meetings yesterday.
2 years, that's right.
Featured a lot of top-notch presentations that showcase the latest and groundbreaking innovations in the oil and gas industry. We started with a
saw this one, right?
which also set the tone for everything we were discussing at the technical seminar.
So I bet it's the one of the what's it called?
Managing Director of NNPC Engineering and Technical Company Limited, where he talked to us on expediting energy projects, the innovation imperative for an energy-sufficient future. And he emphasized and talked on the energy trillion, which was very critical about how affordable energy and sustainable energy and how we can balance it such that we meet that demand that we are actually talking about. Then after that, we had sessions on manufacturing and industrialization. We also looked at the energy market and finance. We talked about carbon credit investments, which was sparked a lot of conversations and questions. We went further to geoscience, and we took a case study of Niger Delta and how there are untapped potentials in the Niger Delta region that can be unlocked using advancements in technology.
Just leave it there.
And workshop on heavy engineering that was very phenomenal. And the most interesting part for me, which always stands out, is the digital transformation conversation. Technology is an enabler and has enabled a lot of industries. The oil and gas industry cannot be left behind. So we looked at a lot of innovations that have come out from some companies who came to present to us. We spoke with One and they took us through their innovations and how they're partnering with a lot of firms to help to drive efficiency, cost, and bring down cost and just drive production more effectively. We also looked at something that interested me a lot, which was automation and control in the Aviva sector, and that was really, really good. We looked at remote I/O technology and Ethernet APL for hazardous areas. I think the whole conversation around technology driving production, driving, managing hazardous situations was very intense. Everyone there enjoyed. The technical seminar was fantastic. The knowledge that was shared was phenomenal, and I think it was such a good time. It was really good.
Fantastic. And I'm hoping that from those presentations, perhaps anyone who has need for any sort of support to accelerate any technology that has been put out there would get the needed support to get it going.
Sure, because even our presenters stayed back to take questions. People were curious about what Main One was doing to secure, data. Just so much that went on at the technical seminar. It was really good.
Fantastic. Anyway, here we, after the opening ceremony, of course, and the exhibition tour, we took a look at a panel session that was just dealing on how to deliver a thriving domestic gas market. What are the key drivers that would help domestic gas market, to attain all of the aspirations of government. But I enjoyed that session yesterday because it was not like you say this, I agree with you, you say that I agree with you. They had quite an exciting, conversation, because on the panel we had people who were regulators, we had people who were operators, we had people who were also dealing with, on the gas value chain, the end users of gas, the NLPGAs and all, and we had a moderator who is both an advocate by World Association she belongs to and a player in the industry who was able to drive all of our conversations for us. We listened to how the regulator, NMPPRA, is helping people in the gas sector get the necessary licenses to do what they need to do to accelerate the development of gas.
Just doing this for somebody instead of
by someone like
for me, what I do, I come with my professional camera.
yes, the opportunity is there, it is there, there is support from the regulators, investors should come and do business in the space. He is doing the same, pushing the envelope with floating energy. Anyways, we went on from there to a ministerial session where the Minister of Power spoke to us on what the government is doing. He said it's audacious what they're trying to do. A problem that's not been solved in 60 years, they're trying to solve in the next 6 years. That is getting us somewhere around 30,000 megawatts of electricity. And we also listened to practical examples on how we're using renewable energy to solve some of our solar needs. Something that came out for me yesterday was when the minister was speaking, the minister said, if we used gas to send power to the grid, it's going to cost somewhere, maybe, he was saying 4 naira, if I remember correctly, but way below what we're currently paying using these other resources. So that leads me to where we should remain, which is energy mix. We should continue to have a conversation around energy mix. It shouldn't be a case where we're trying to throw any part of energy source under the bus. We need the gas, we need the hydro, we need the solar. The guy from Total yesterday was talking to us about what they're doing, in the renewable energy space and all of that. Why they as Total have decided to invest in that space and build capacity in that space. We spoke about how if you bring the right environment, investors are willing to come and invest in the space, but you need to tell them how they can get the money. If they sold, for instance, to the Transition Company of Nigeria, are they going to recoup the investment that they are putting down there? Such certainties need to be put in place by government, and he said that would be a strong incentive to drive conversations. Anyways, pretty much about yesterday. Then we'll close with the dinner. I had another fashion show yesterday, right? I had another fashion show yesterday, and if you were not there, you really did miss. We had some dancers who came to give us the big dance around the great cat which was our theme for the evening. We had Nigerian perform, and it was Chico who hosted the show yesterday. Anyways, this evening here, not here at the Congress of the Transport Hilton, this concert that I did from Singapore. Please come again with your smile and your presence. I think the same is you, President.
I agree. Just because you said it.
So welcome to day 2 of the Energy Conference. I'm Richmond Osuji.
Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Once again, welcome. I am Mojibadi Shosoya, and I will be co-hosting alongside Richmond today.
Just a quick reminder that you please keep in mind exit doors should there be any kind of emergency for this staff. Put your phones on silent and vibrations at this time to avoid distractions in the course of the meeting. Wear your badges at all times to give you access to our networking functions and for ease identification of some of the products.
We'd also like us to take this moment to especially thank all our speakers who are here in the room and those who will join us later. We'd also like to thank very especially our sponsors. We'd like to thank the Ministry of Petroleum Resources. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank our principal sponsor, the NNPC. We'd like to thank our supplier sponsor, the IPPG, our diamond sponsors, Guando PLC, Nigeria LNG Limited, UTM FLNG Limited, and MD Western for your continued support. Thank you very much.
And indeed, all our sponsors, in whichever category you enabled this year's event, whichever category you allowed us to bring everyone into the room and have this year's event. We thank you immensely. And it's on that note we would like to get into our very first panel for today. We are looking in panel session 4 at future leaders, the future of energy in Nigeria. And quickly, we just come to the panel and yield the platform to our moderator. Let's first of all welcome Dr. Alex Ainoji, Executive Director of PLC and COO. Representing him is the General Manager Commercial for PLC. Let's welcome Samuel. You've been at work for today. Thank you very much. All right. Joining Bambo, I'd like to welcome quickly the Chairperson Petroleum Contractors Trade Section, Managing Director of Generals Nigeria, and the Chief Executive Officer of Best Service in Nigeria, Rosario Sosa. Rosario, welcome. To the left of Bambo, please. Joining them, joining them is the Managing Director of IPOSH Nigeria Limited. Let's welcome Olumuyiwa Nelson Oshie. To Rosario's left, yes. Alrighty, so joining them is Director, Deepwater and PSC Shell Nigeria Africa Business Unit, Michelle Fluja. And moderating the panel is the Otumba of the services space, Country Manager Technique FMC, Tayo Akunkumi. Otumba.
This section before the VIP comes in. So I'll get them there shortly. Since there's no...
We'll also be talking about how do we attract finance to these things that we need to do to make sure that we keep the lights on, we keep the visualization going, and we keep Nigeria in Africa where it should be in the marketplace. And towards the end, we'll keep one time to talk a little bit more about diversity and what that means to the bigger picture. So, without further ado, I'll go to you, Michelle, to talk about this. I wanted to get your perspective on the energy mix. There's been quite a lot of changes since we started talking about the world needs to reframe its dependency on a certain type of energy. So where do you think we are? Where do you think Nigeria should be? How do we get that?
Thank you very much, Tayo. see it evolving, and it needs to evolve in order to meet the needs of the changing world. And while we believe that the future is lower carbon, we still believe that oil and gas are a vital component within the energy mix. You have to have all forms. And in order to go ahead and build a strategy around this, we did a strategy that's going to take over a decade, starting with our existing set of resources and moving forward into lower carbon. And when I look at some of the key strategies that any company needs to have in place as they go through the energy mix, thinking about how they're going to be growing their portfolio, it's got to start with people. And it's people and leadership. Innovation is kind of the cornerstone of all of this. It's technology. Both technology to drive our existing assets, as well as technology to look at lower carbon businesses. It's a lower carbon strategy, and I think it needs to be twofold. If oil and gas are going to remain part of the energy mix, you've got to look at how we're going to lower the carbon intensity of our current footprint. But then also, how are you going to develop, deploy, and implement technology that brings you into that lower carbon future? Lastly, it's going to be about partnership and your ability to have a competitive portfolio. It has to be a portfolio. It can't just be oil, just be gas. It needs to be oil, gas, lower carbon. It's an energy system. And the partnership is going to be critical. Because no company can do it on their own. It's a partnership between the federal government of Nigeria, our partners in the assets, NOPCL from us, our other partners, and our business partners. Because it's going to take all of us together with the human energy to deploy the technology that's going to help us progress into the future.
Thank you very much, Michelle. That's quite exciting. I mean, we opened up a few sub-things that we really want to well that delve into. We talk about partnership and portfolio, we talk about technology. So obviously, from a spectrum of the industry, the producers, especially the IOCs, understood that the energy business changes, strategy changes, portfolio is being restructured, business focus is being given to other areas. And it's King, you said it's technology, right? Technology is the backbone of that area. So I'm going to go to you, Rosario. Your role as the leader of the Association of Technology Leaders or Technology Providers in the country. What is your perspective on that with respect to maybe you and your members' contribution to the aspiration of the IOCs and the events?
Okay, thanks, Dayo. I think Michelle has said a wonderful conversation. 100% aligned with her views around what we must do with net zero set at 2060 for Nigeria. I believe that a mix in the portfolio is what is required for us to get to that target that we desire. From a technology perspective, our member companies in the procurement contract and security section are also is well positioned to continue to innovate, align with the changing dynamics in the landscape of energy. I won't go into the details of the technology. We have a wide array of technologies across the value chain from XLB to Halliburton to Technique FMC and all these companies. But I'd like to take it more on a macro level. And I believe that Michelle's point on the need to harness our current resources. Obviously, traditional resources so far have not shown to be capable of addressing the demand of resources. However, I believe that somewhat we are on the right track around the traditional set of energy and how the government in Nigeria are addressing the viewpoints of going forward with the fuel and gas. The decade of gas has been declared. There's now a state of emergency in the country that has been declared in the oil and gas industry yesterday and today. Also reiterated. And the idea is that we must continue to harness oil and gas. The other focuses as well that I have seen, which companies in the right direction around net zero targets and resolving all the bottlenecks, in addressing or harnessing and producing the current fossil resources that we have as a country. A second point for me would be that while we do that, and we all agree in this room that a balance in the mix is required, we need to have a view of the renewable potential of the country. With abundance of sunlight, with abundance of, all the natural God-given resources that we have. I believe that as we focus on the traditional fossil resources and harness those, we also have to have a long-term view on how we can those renewable resources. I gave a recent interview where I was highlighting the case for Angola, where Angola raised a 50 megawatts solar farm through investment. And I think it's very exciting to see because you can see that the future is still oil in Angola, but it's also seeing towards a balanced future, with that solar perspective that they now carry. So for me, in looking at the balance between the traditional fossil resources that we have in Nigeria, which we need to optimally tap into, and the renewable mix, we need to unblock all the issues with traditional sources. Yesterday again, I heard the GCU address some of the issues, which I won't go into. But I see the government and the NOC, taking a concerted effort towards addressing the issues of the sector. Renewable financing or financing continues to be, a challenge since it's major funds required. And for us in a country such as Nigeria, the sincerity of purpose has to be in place here. There are many undertones around the sincerity of our intent, which investors, I think there are willing investors around the world. And investors, capitalists know where the money is. And so if I'm looking at that direction around how we see investors being attracted to a market such as Nigeria, to pull the capital towards Nigeria, then address all those intents around sincerity as well as consistency, so that you're not bringing in a policy, a renewable policy that is in place today, and with the change of administration, you're certain it brings about stability in the economy, such as to the extent that investors do not have the confidence required to be able to. Renewable is so new in the space. Technology is evolving in the traditional fossil direction. So it's important that we developing and attracting.
This way, no?
If I stand here, if I want to swap the
Okay, be
camera,
cooperative, I beg. This is a pathway. What if I want to move?
I'm blocking it. It's not like it that way.
So, I mean, you said it in a long to sort of short to mid-term.
Then if you want to sit there, sit there. If you don't want to sit there, come and join us. If you stand here and I want to swap my camera, I'll block you.
You're being just difficult. I don't know.
If you put your camera here now, somebody to pass this direction.
Why don't you just blocking the entire aisle?
Okay, come on, put your camera here.
So, one of the things I want to say,
Hey, I'll push the camera down. No, I'll push the stand down. I don't know what you're doing. Just being difficult. What do you want to capture that every other person is not capturing?
Capture it. I'm equally going to capture that.
Okay, so why don't you go to the front? Here you are, so you're too far. Go forward.
When they will start talking to me, let me just stay here. I want to stay.
what do we need to do to get this finance interest? Thanks for that. I think
You know that.
it's a great question. I had prepared a whole lot to say about the energy mix.
So wherever we place our camera, we want to count it this way to your power.
That entire city, but I'd like to speak a little bit about our
Especially she did tell me
perspective.
she want record and one record. She did tell me what I want to capture, which she did capture.
Have to be optimistic. We remain optimistic. Look at all these challenges, more especially, and taking advantage of those opportunities is really the value that indigenous companies can bring. terms of innovation. I'll give examples of how we're doing that. Yesterday,
Because let him satisfy himself. If he doesn't satisfy himself, he won't feel
That
like
not be
it.
on my guide.
Just allow him.
I dey answer my question. My follower on not be you. I go stand there. I go do me anything. Yeah, the reason we love you.
Well, every time I hear this stat quoted, it's almost quoted as a negative number. Well, in truth, that would mean that the demand is there. You know, we keep talking about how much everything, but it's 400 million people who need power. Nigeria, by definition, are also very resilient and resourceful. These people will be industries. So how do we create between now and that time? Because if I don't wake up one day and there are 350, 400 people, it's going to grow over time. So how do we create the infrastructure, the enabling environment for these people to generate value? And like you said, I can try to segue that into attractive finance. Traditional finance or financing projects really hasn't worked as well as it would in other countries in Nigeria. We have to be a bit more creative in what we're doing. Rather than having the finance be the foundation to drive the demand, I think we need to let the demand drive the finance. What am I trying to say? I'll give an example. If, for example, we have declared a decade of gas in terms of growing energy mix, the energy mix by itself is something that I believe will happen organically. The idea of net zero by the timelines that have been dictated will not work for everyone. We do have unique opportunities. We have almost 40% of the reserves on the continent for very minimal investment. It's not proportional to the kind of reserves that we have. Our reserves to production is low. However, we know every drop of oil or molecule of gas that we produce today has a home, except for the ones that we fled, which is something that the IOCs, the indigenous companies have taken up to the point that we've had a serious reduction even in our flights. I wish that the Honorable Minister of Communication would be here, because there are really some synergies there that we have to look at when we see we can look at traditional financing. For example, we look at a company like, talking about global companies like NVIDIA. It's been in the news that NVIDIA has recently become a $3 trillion market cap. 10 years ago, they were $10 billion, which is still a investment environment. But the growth has been driven by AI technology effectively. What do they manufacture specifically is AI chips that go into data centers for cloud computing. And what is cloud computing? There are data centers all over the world. Many of them in the middle of nowhere. All you require is connectivity. In Nigeria, we have really a gas culture. We have a lot of gas. We have flares. Even those ones that are very small. There's absolutely nothing wrong in exploring building data centers that minimally manage in the Niger Delta, where the flares are, and then connecting them to the internet. Internet is global. Your demand for that infrastructure will be global. So we talk, and we can do this very quickly, it will be transformation. So we talk a lot about creating the demand. We need to start looking at, first of all, global demand. How can we serve that? We're going to have almost 400 million people. If they are well grounded, educated, we will create the value given the right infrastructure. And for financing, we need to start looking at the demand itself, pulling for the financing. There's many structures we can use. We can use vendor financing. There have been instances where you've spoken to like LNG developers to even go down the value chain and fund the drilling of the wells for the gas that will supply the LNG plants. And then the gas pays for the well that was drilled. And at the same time, you have what we're now calling associated oil, which will be outside. Michelle said earlier that there has to be a portfolio that's profitable. Is what I heard from the people for opportunities. And when you say something has to be profitable, it's going to be organically driven. I have a little bit more to say, and maybe I'll keep it. But I was talking about the energy mix, and I think I missed this out. We're in a unique position. If you look at the way, and this example keeps coming up, that telecom developed in Nigeria, we had landlines, it was in a lot of places, it wasn't everywhere. When we had mobile phones, we didn't go and compete with deploying landlines over Nigeria before we were switched. The objective was to have communication, which we all have now. So now we have gas power plants, we have gas lines that we continue to build in. However, once we can really invest and ramp up rural electrification, mini grids, things like that, we will organically get into an energy mix that works for us and will balance out for us, given that we can't leave valuable resources in the ground.
This is really good. I like your unique perspective that they talk about it, the collaboration side of the information. And then you highlighted, having to demand driver finance. That's a pretty good point. It's coming forward. Well, Jim, Michelle, let me go back to you on that. What is your take on attractive finance for the projects? What is your opinion?
I'm going to start by saying we ought to be excited. I know it's day 3 of the conference. Everybody looks very, very tired. We need to be excited. Nigeria has the resource density, right? There are resources in Nigeria, both oil and gas and energy resources, but also people resources, right? So you've got the resource. That's the first step. Without the resource, you can't get anything. I believe we've got the partnership with the federal government, with our partners, to try to find ways to make it work. We've said it a bit before, you need a safe, stable environment in order to grow these projects. They need to be competitive, you need a strong rate of return, you need a fiscally stable and commercially stable environment in order to operate. We need to bring the cost down. So now once you've got the resources down, if we can find a way to make these projects competitive, financing is kind of the next hurdle. If you look at Chevron as an example, we had a $1.4 billion investment in what we're calling Project Panther. It's an infill program. It is externally funded. And by using an innovative externally funded mechanism, it solves a lot of problems. We don't have to worry about arrears or where does the money coming from. All we have to do is deliver. We have to deliver, we have to execute with excellence. And I think it's through innovative financing like that we're going to find ways to bring these projects. Again, it's got to start with the basics. You got to have the portfolio of resources. You got to have the terms and conditions to operate in a stable fiscal environment to attract the investors. But we found ways to do it. And this Project Panther isn't our first. We have had multiple goings at this infill drilling program, and we find that with the mix, we do find the investment dollars, and we have managed to be successful with it.
So let me mention on the stable fiscal environment. Lots of this says about every organization doesn't know where you are. You look at your portfolio opportunity, and then you risk it's a top rating system, right? So looking, I'm going to you, looking at, I want to zone in maybe a little bit on gas, but feel free to speak about it. But with respect to gas and using gas exploration output, or any of it, give me an idea of what's your thoughts are on the government, working with the agencies, from the private government side, the private sector side, and how you think what do we need to do to improve our situation. Okay, thank you. That's the yeah, it's working. Okay, so I can talk to you a little bit. I'm sure I will talk to you, so I'm sorry, don't forgive me. Yesterday while we were here, we lost power for 2 or 3 years. And as to power, it's just something we discuss all the time. If you look at it from a business perspective, a government perspective, business is organized in a government. So we can pass legislation. She said something earlier about our nation being sincere to ourselves. We need to be sincere, we need to be purposeful, and we need to have the right intentions. We need to speak to ourselves. Are we ready to develop this as a business? Are we ready to integrate our Java steel back into the country? Are we ready to build pipelines across the country? Are we ready to build CNG plants across the country? We don't just have to, come here all the time, speak, debate, deliberate, write down, and at the end of the day, clink our glasses at dinner, and we come again next day. So for me, gas power is the future. And like Shirley said, like 0 to 2060, is it achievable? Yes. And we will support it with our intention. We will support it with the right legislation. We don't want to wake up the next morning and the Senate is changing the law. I was talking about I think I shared that with you earlier. First thing about Nigeria is extremely rich. It has energy, wind, solar, everywhere. We are extremely rich. We have the brightest mind in this country. We have a young generation. We have everything they need. We are going to get it right. I listened to one Professor Story said the World Bank will not give Nigeria tax carbon credit. But the World Bank is powered by PESCO. PESCO's 95% of the power generated by PESCO is from nuclear, coal, and gas. But they're not allowed to unless our coal. We're not allowed to do that. We're not allowed to build coal plants. So for me, I think we have to be sincere. And honestly, we also have to train the young ones coming up. A lot of our experts are, going to retire shortly. And we have to have the right skill to ensure that these people can take over this department, this business, the willingness to net zero by 2060. And honestly, drive down costs, driving on innovation, driving on creativity, driving on a lot of things. Panel spoken about technology. Technology is pre-COVID, we were used to go into the office. Post-COVID, everyone works from home. Do you understand? So we need to get used to technology. We need to invest in technology. And we need to also drive demand for investment. How? Legislation. The right mindset. Creating a new environment. New environment that will allow your marginal field operators, your MCs, chairman spoke here yesterday passionately about investment. We need to encourage these guys to come into the country and do the right things. For me, for example, now, or AG, whatever you call it, you have to allow these EMP companies float it for a while. 2 years max, minimum. You float now. We can do it like this. We can drive value back to you. The right value will come back into the country. And by extension, we will invest in our infrastructure. We will upgrade the country. We will upgrade every sector of the economy. I have a whole lot to say, but I spoke earlier in a conference in London, and I said, I'm too passionate about Nigeria. I can't leave Nigeria. I'm extremely passionate about it. I'm extremely passionate about the oil and gas. I'm extremely passionate about power. I'm extremely passionate about every part of the country. Yesterday, the first manufacturing association of Nigeria had a meeting, and Dangote said, continue to rely on 5,000 megawatts, 4,900 megawatts, band A, band B, band C. It's crazy. There's a research that says every Nigerian has 150 kilowatts access a year. The refrigerator in Washington, D.C. uses 450 kilowatts a year. Then imagine a human being to a refrigerator. 450 minus 150, 300. Yeah. But the investment is there. If we have 20 million, 14 million generator in this country, that means the people are willing to pay for power. Because you have a generator, you've got power by diesel, by gas, by CNG as well, and by PLS to power it. Because the people are interested and they are willing to pay. Let's develop the gas sector. Thank you.
I mean, you made your point in interesting ways, but I mean, good point about energy access in the midst of untapped resources, and we absolutely need to latch onto gas for power, domestic power, transportation, and industrialization. So it's a very good point. You also mentioned, I think briefly, because I have to come back to you, and as I start making your notes about the young people. Yeah, you're tall enough to be able to see them from where you are. But before we get into that, I think we've touched on quite a number of things. Everyone's focused, but I want us to, because there's quite some good points has been raised. Maybe some of them have to be delved into afterwards. But I want to go to something I know is important to the number of people in this panel, which is diversity. From the gender standpoint, from the age inclusion, people are getting excluded now. We have to take selfies just to feel alone. But there's a lot to be said about that. There's a lot to, I wanted to hear your perspective because I know you know this time. And I wanted to go about you saying something about it. What do we stand to gain, and what do we stand to lose by not paying attention to the guys?
Thank you, Tayo. What's not to love about this topic? I always say on this stage that I'll be doing my gender a disservice if I don't talk about this topic, right? So yes, it's a very important topic to me. It should be an important topic for every single one of us in this room. Nobody excluded from the bucket. Yes, but you bring a play that looks at gender and age and other things. Inclusion in general. I believe as an industry, obviously we need to continue to envision strategies that allow us to build inclusivity in our workplaces or in our establishments in general. On the basic level, it would always be, okay, promote gender equality from a standpoint of policy direction. Up till now, I know there's a national gender policy in Nigeria. I'm not sure how effective it is at the moment. But I believe that it starts with defining those gender policies that enable equal pay, for instance, maternity leave, another example, and generally all anti-discriminatory practices. So that eventually, we talked about the paradigm shift or a cultural aspect that we need to bear in mind. Because traditionally, the workplace had always been perceived to be in favor of men, not by any doing anybody. generally speaking, women had the traditional roles in African context of being the home gods and taking care of the home front. And then the men had the responsibility of going out and coming back in and ensuring that. So this is our natural instinct, right? But if we have to have that paradigm shift, the government has to enable it from a policy direction, but then there also has to be an awareness that is created at all levels. All levels, I mean, at the government level, at private entity levels, and even at the community level, so that people begin to understand that you harness the potential of a country or a continent by ensuring that every voice is heard and every voice is brought to the table. I like to give my own example as a case study. First and foremost, my late father believed in me before I could believe in myself. So, it already gave me the confidence and the wings to propel myself, even after past when, I was now not necessarily under his guidance any longer. So that's the first thing. And thankfully for me, I've worked in organizations that also allow us the opportunity or also have enabling policies that allow strategic development of all genders and all ages, right? And what that has done for me is that my early years trading offshore older for Shell, I drilled about 18 wells on that asset, right? And once upon a time, I would be the only woman on the rig, deep offshore of Nigeria. But that helped me build my capacity. So the capacity you see me have today is because a company invested in me, a company let me go offshore, believed in me, and allowed me to hone my resources and my competencies in the way that I'm utilizing it today. And so that's what we must do as a nation, in the sense that we must begin to build, focused attention, not just on policy direction, but strategically developing leadership talents, not just males, but females. It's now good to see that we come for these conferences now, and the panel is beginning to be diverse. Kudos to the organizers. I think they deserve a round of applause. Once upon a time, you probably will not see any female filed up, on the panel. So that's a good thing, and that's a good direction. Because representation matters, right? When you see me do it, then my gender has the confidence to be able to say, if Zari can do it, then I possibly can do it. And then you go with confidence in achieving that desire. So that's one angle to it as well. I talked about the community angle. I believe that from the point of view of what are traditional and cultural bias towards the gender lens, it's important that we address strategic awareness at all levels, especially at the community levels, so that, especially for those who are underserved or disadvantaged from a point of view of information, people in rural communities begin to understand that when they have a boy and a girl child, you don't say, okay, the girl child is going to be married off anyways, so I invest more in my boy child. So it's important that even at the community, we start to ensure that we make education accessible from a government perspective at all levels, so that people are given the foundational basis to, breathe their wings and fly. And so that's where the awareness training comes on, the education comes on, scholarships come in. A lot of us, a lot of our companies, founding here. Personally, I work with Canaries, and every year we run an annual scholarship that floats at all levels, not just at the tertiary level, but also at the primary level, the secondary level, to ensure that we continue to funnel out talents that potentially can lead and we can enrich the pipeline of the energy industry, for a talent pipeline of the energy industry. So it's critical that we have these views around creating the awareness, enabling the environment, and developing the leadership or whatever technical competencies that we require for the future without losing sight of age. There's something that affects us now in the energy in the industry. We have a cycle. We've suffered a cycle in the past few years where we've seen COVID, we've seen the impact of the Russia and Ukraine war, and we're at that point where we're trying to stabilize our nation and also go ahead to, just maximize or optimize our oil resources. So what that has done for the industry is that there is a gap. There's a gap from an age perspective. So you have certain age lines who are currently workforce population in the industry, but there's a gap because there's not been hiring because there's been very limited activity, right? So it's important that the industry also has a view that as the industry is impacted by the macro dynamics of the economy, we don't lose sight of the fact that we need to create a pipeline of talent for today, for tomorrow, and for the future. This is my view on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I mean, we laid it out. We gain, we lose, so we don't do what is that typically fits into that happening. And you open up another thing that is nice segue about the age gap and maybe some extent that. And I want to, so Michelle, I'm going to come to you, but I want to speak before the voice. So a few things. We talked about having a lot of resources in Nigeria, and you've been here long enough in your career several times to be able to speak to that. But then we also talking about being able to bring this stuff and attracting the brightest minds to fill that gap, and also still leverage the diversity side of it. How do you see? I actually want your personal perspective before you go into company perspective, and I also like to develop that human capacity part of your toolkit.
Okay, there's a lot in there. All right, so I'll start with my personal perspective. This is my second time in Nigeria. Similar to you, I worked offshore. I spent 10 years of my career rotating offshore. But it's funny, the last time I was in Nigeria, 2012 and 2017, I ended as the offshore installation manager on EveafriqueNews, whichever, and was our largest FPSO. And I ran it, and I was the only female on board. Not only that, but when I would come in for crew change meetings, the leadership team that I got to be part of were all men. I come back now